And we're back in that courtroom in Georgia for the Jennifer and Joseph Rosenbaum case, and Corinne Mull is still at it, cross-examining the doctor, Dr. Darashaw. She's questioning some of the findings she's had about some of these injuries. Couldn't they be post-mortem? What about this? What about that? Let's go back into the courtroom for more. That is the cross-examination continuing of Dr. Darashaw, and she's the ME that looked at poor little Layla Marie Daniels' 2-year-old body and itemized all of the injuries. She is being cross-examined now by Corinne Mull, who I've described as the Bulldog, and I mean that in the nicest way possible. She might even be in the MJB top 10. I like her forcefulness. With me is Jessica, and you know, I see you smile occasionally when the defense attorney makes a point. Making a point here, making a point there. One of the things she talked about made it sound like, you know, during your autopsy you might have caused some of these injuries, including when you shaved the head. What do you think about that? Again, they're questioning her technique and her methodology as to how she did this report, and it makes total sense. Again, you know, there's things that you left out. You scraped her head. Why didn't you put that in the report? Let's talk about this bruising. It's not really an exact science, is it? You had this 911, you heard the phone call, you had the reports before you started the evaluation. That's a little bit slanted, isn't it? So I think she's doing exactly what a great defense attorney is supposed to do, especially with these facts and with an expert witness, even though she's really not an expert witness, but you really have to treat her like one. And having said that, I mean, the word that comes to my mind when thinking about this doctor is unflappable. And maybe it's because she's not a paid, you know, hit person. You know, she's doing her job and she's explaining everything away in what seems to me to be a pretty reasonable way. What do you think? I think so too. Again, because she's not a paid expert, a lot of times they're a little bit boring, and I think that she's really able to talk to the jurors and to talk like we do. And she's very likable. You're not falling asleep. So I think they have a great witness. Yeah, I think she's doing a great job. Not to take anything away from the defense, because Attorney Mull is also doing a fine job in a very tough position. We're going to get back into that Georgia courtroom. Stay right where you are. This is the Law and Crime Network. We'll be right back. It's a moment of reflection for us all. They're getting some more slides or pictures all queued up there. So, Jessica, let me ask you this. This is an effective defensive technique, right? Where you're basically asking the witness to say, is it impossible? That right? Is correct, yes. What's the seed you're planting then? And usually you expect the witness to just give you a yes or no answer and not elaborate, but this time it backfired on the defense attorney, and she gave the reasons why she didn't exclude the evidence, so it definitely backfired. And again, she's doing everything that she's supposed to do, except this is bad facts. When you have bad facts, it really doesn't matter what kind of defense you put on. You can put on the best defense, which she's doing, but it's just bad facts. Yeah, and this witness turns it around on her by repeating some of those bad facts. Let's go back into court. So that's what happens when you're starting to dig a hole and it starts getting a little deep. You just try and find some reason to wrap up on what is almost a positive note, which in this case was, you have to agree that reasonable minds can differ, correct? Jessica Ramirez is with me, and that's because she had just been told, this defense attorney had just been told by the ME in no uncertain terms, it is not reasonable that it was a bad Heimlich maneuver. It is not reasonable that it was bad CPR. Those things could not have caused these injuries, right? That is correct. That's exactly what she said. However, the defense does, they have to, of course, say, but could have been, could have happened because of a Heimlich, and she does say yes, it could have been. I don't accept it. I find it unreasonable and illogical, but it could have. I think that the defense had some good points. They were able to prove that the bruising is not an exact science. You can't really tell how old a bruise is by the color. I think they were also able to prove that there was some bruising in the chest area, and that could have been caused by compression and by pushing. Again, it's a far reach. I still think that this is a slam dunk for the state, but they're doing a good job with the facts presented. Let's talk about, it's an aside, but it's a big issue here. We have the same defense attorney, and she may be tough and rough, representing mom and dad, foster mom and foster dad. That's a problem. It's a huge problem, and I have to believe that this is a very seasoned attorney. She is probably a chief of some sort if she has this case, and I'm sure that this came up a lot of times, and I'm sure she's spoken about this issue with her colleagues, and I think this is, if that's what your clients want, that's what your clients want. But if you're sitting there, if you're Joseph, I mean, here's my defense. You know, she did it. I was just there, and maybe I could have done more to stop it, but I wasn't even there a lot. I was working, and the things that I saw weren't that bad. I mean, what do they do now when he's at the same defense table as Jennifer, who clearly is the evil person, according to the prosecution?
Can't really do anything now, and he definitely looks like he was less culpable. He was crying. He was very appropriate while at the ER. She wasn't. She was making it, she made it a point to tell the caseworker, I can't believe I'm not crying. Again, but it's pretty much too late right now, and he made a big mistake, and he's going to be paying for that mistake.
If they're convicted, appealable issue, big issue?
Oh, I think so. Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break back in Georgia for the Rosenbaum case right here on the Law&Crime Network. Stay where you are. We'll be right back. This is redirect examination of Dr. Derishaw, and she's making some very interesting points. Let me ask Jessica Ramirez, who's here. You know, the key of redirect, when you have such a short cross, pretty surgical, right?
Yeah, it's basically trying to clean up or make sense what didn't make sense to the jury.
And one of the things I think is important here, and everybody can put this picture in their mind. They hear the doctor talk about holding this young child's chest area and squeezing in that way, and the ribs are so pliable at that age. I think of like a plastic fork or something where you can bend it and bend it. It takes a lot before it actually breaks.
Right.
There's at least one broken rib in this case on this child.
Yeah, so basically it means that this child was hit so hard.
Squeezed so hard.
Very, very hard, because again, our bones, especially children's bones, like you had mentioned earlier, like cartridge, right?
They really are. They haven't really firmed up yet.
Exactly. I think God made them that way to protect kids, no? So when you really have any broken bones or any broken bones to the ribs, it really does say that it was trauma, and it was hard, and it was painful. And
so what the defense is trying to convince this jury is that those injuries, as they've now been so described, could happen as part of some sort of resuscitation or other attempt to help Layla, who was choking on the mystery chicken, right?
Correct.
So how do you think this is playing out? Obviously, this witness's testimony winding down. Overall impression?
I think it's a very good witness. I think that she was able to prove what really happened, and I think again putting everything together. I think that the defense asked, an autopsy doesn't really tell the whole story, does it? And here I think everything tells the whole story. The witnesses, the doctors, the family, what happened to this child. So I think that it's the home run for the state. Yeah.
So even though we've talked about using this Emmy foundationally, it's kind of like they used her to wrap things up in a bow and tie all the pieces together for this jury. We're going to come back to the case of Rosenbaum in Georgia, and we're going to do that right after a quick break. Stay with us. Very interesting here. This is defense counsel making an argument for a directed verdict, but only as to Joseph Rosenbaum. Remember, they're kind of together there as defendants. We see this motion all the time, Jessica Ramirez, normally for all the defendants. What's your take on this, where it's, hey, just Joseph did nothing wrong here?
Again, it's just showing how problematic it could be for this defense attorney in representing both defendants. Basically, you're asking the judge to say, listen, Joseph, you cannot find him guilty. There's no evidence that we presented that any reasonable jury will find him guilty. So please find him not guilty, Judge. And right now, she's basically saying, this is a big problem. One of them is going to get found not guilty. So much so, I believe, that I'm going to ask for a directed verdict. And I think that could be very problematic. Again, I see a lot of appeal going on in this case.
And the prosecution points out, well, look, we've had evidence that he was in the room at times when abuse was taking place. He was awake, that he dressed some of the injuries, so he knew about them. What was some of the others? That he took care of the kids before Jennifer came home, and he would even give them baths. So how could he just turn literally a blind eye to what was happening? So that's the prosecution's argument. The judge has already denied the motion on a number of the initial counts. There are at least 12, I think, against Joseph. So they're working their way through those counts. I fully expect they'll all be denied, and we'll be moving on with the defense case, whatever it may be. And just to remind, the state has rested in the case against the Rosenbaums. So tomorrow, we'll hear whether or not the defense is going to put on anything or if they're going to rest and go right to arguments. What do you think? Best guess on the defense at this point?
I think they're going to bring, or they should bring, some type of expert to basically relay to the jury that these bruises, there's no way, there's no exact science. There's no exact science as to bone fractures to see how old they are, that this could have been caused by a number of things, child's play, what wasn't in the report, where there there holes in the backyard that the child could have fell?
And the timing very critical too. So it's all going to unfold tomorrow, we expect, one way or the other. Jessica Ramirez, great to have you here. I appreciate you breaking your contract with Jesse, and I hope you'll come back and join me again.
Thank you.
Don't forget, tomorrow, folks, we have another new trial beginning out of Florida. It's the case of Grant Amato. So I can't get to details now, but there's plenty to talk about. More Rosenbaum tomorrow, too. Stand by for the Daily Debrief. Coming right back with Law&Crime Network.